Vice President Mr. A. Balakrishnan, Honorary Secretary C.A. Jomon George, other Managing Committee members, members of KMA. I can see Colonel Achari from Pala Management Association, students and invited guests. Today we have a panel discussion on a very contemporary and relevant topic, which is matter of so much concern to each one of us in Kerala. These are sessions that the program committee at KMA, headed by Mr. S.R. Nair, put together to bring to the fore such issues that we encounter which has serious bearings on our lives and livelihoods. We bring some of the experts of stalwarts who have seen through these issues to our stage to deliberate and discuss on the situations, reasons, challenges, opportunities, and all pros and cons that such topical issues raise. If you recollect, we have had 4 such panel discussions in the recent past discussing some such weighty issues. And interestingly, many of them were taken up for a discussion of that kind for the first time and thereafter taken over by mainstream media and other domain experts for detailed deliberations and dissections. Our panel discussions on the concerns posed by a growing challenge of a geriatric population on the rise in our state. The session named as A Geriatric Kerala, Its Concerns and Challenges. And again, a few months back, when KMA for the first time spoke about the sensational Great Resignations, its challenges and opportunities, which thereafter was taken up by almost all the media for a detailed study and reporting. Well, this is how KMA has been pulling on in these troubled times to keep our members engaged, remain positive, and provide with meaningful deliberations and events of utility. In spite of all the troubles and disruptions caused by the pandemic, KMA has been continuously bringing to you very many events of purpose on a consistent basis. Regular leader talks lecture series, StartCon discussion series with startup entrepreneurs, women manager forum activities, the 3 memorial lectures, management education programs, MSME workshops. In fact, we were trying to serve suiting everyone's palates. We also conducted one digital summit, a leadership seminar in association with Rotary, and most recently, the KMA CSR Conclave and Awards, all of them in the hybrid format. We also initiated a new event titled Rendezvous with the CEO, a program organized by the KMA CEO Forum, which features an interactive session with CEOs of national repute. Well, as the saying goes, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going, and that's exactly what KMA did, capitalizing on the general lull due to the pandemic times. We effectively used a secretariat team to complete the ISO certification for KMA in this pandemic, making us one of the rare management associations in the country who have this recognition of an ISO certification. We also initiated the reconstruction or the massive renovation work at the KMA house, our own office at Panambali Nagar in Cochin, by converting the building into an iconic structure with the most modern convention facilities. If everything goes well, we expect to have the new building and the convention center open by early March 2022. We'll have some of the renowned names of Kerala, the Lulu Financial Group, Cochin Shipyard Limited, Geojit Group, Agape Diagnostics, FACT, Petronet LNG, SRK Group from Gujarat, Medivision Labs, and many more such successful corporate houses lending support as the patrons for this new building by branding individual halls in their names and also having their logos etched on the wall of fame for good. But the most important initiative that we would like to emphasize is the introduction of the KMA Scholarship for financially challenged students for their higher studies. This is going to be an ongoing scheme of funding the education of poor students by utilizing CSR funds of corporates and helping these students in their pursuit of higher studies, especially that in management. Well, it is indeed fulfilling to note that all such new initiatives and the encouraging responses that KMA received from our members and delegates have played a big role in bringing IMA's 2 of the most coveted awards of the year, the Best LMA Award of the country and the Most Improved LMA of the Year Award to KMA. Thank you all for the wholehearted support. Well, coming to today's panel discussion, the topic is something which is puzzling each one of us for the past so many decades. Any ambitious and aspirational projects announced in state by any government faces continuous criticism from all quarters except the ruling front, thereby taking the sheen away from its benefits by projecting only the worst of the calamities that would befall on the state and its population. Many innovative ideas, concepts, and projects once mooted in Kerala and effectively ground to dust or whimpered into inconsequential projects thereafter have taken shape in other parts of the country, making the ecosystem there reap the benefits. And we still proudly portray our high literacy rates and the self-assumed high degrees of IQ and prowess, which only have managed in keeping us stale on many domains, be it on the institutions front or on the infrastructure front. So much so that it's a fact that all branding and advertising companies suggest going to Kerala with any new concept to find out the bullet points to fill in the slides that list down the negatives or the cons of any new project or product. On this background, we at KMA have been thinking on how to bring to fore a positive perspective to the state's developments, trying to find out what we need and what we don't, and on how to manage the people's aspirations as well as objections on building up a Kerala where people can live and work qualitatively. To deliberate on this hot topic today, we have a high-profile panel comprising of Mr. Vasudevan Suresh, former chairman of HUDCO, Mr. G. Vijayaraghavan, founder CEO of Technopark and former member of the Planning Board of Kerala, and Mr. V.K. Matthews, founder, CEO, and executive chairman of IBS Software. And with them, past president of KMA, Mr. S.R. Nair, as a moderator to discuss and deliberate on this very thought-provoking and intriguing topic, Kerala's developmental conundrum. On behalf of the managing committee at KMA and all present here, I formally welcome you, Mr. Vasudevan Suresh, Mr. G. Vijayaraghavan, and Mr. V.K. Matthews, and Program Committee Chair, Mr. S.R. Nair, to this KMA panel discussion that is about to commence. Hearty welcome to each one of you.
Thank you.
I also extend a warm welcome to all the past presidents of KMA present here, members of the Managing Committee and Executive Committee, Senior Vice President, Treasurer, Honorary Secretary, members of KMA and other LMAs, student members, members of the media, and all invited guests to this session which is about to begin. So without further ado, let me invite our Program Committee Chair, Mr. S.R. Nair, to formally introduce the topic and the most distinguished panelists, and also take us through this discussion to deliberate and to enlighten us on the need for a solution to this conundrum. For those who still do not know SR well, he is a senior past president of KMA and is a renowned corporate mentor, business coach, author, blogger, and thinker who turned his focus to academia after a successful stint as an IT entrepreneur for many years. Now, over to SR to introduce our esteemed guests and to take you all through the session, including the Q&A from our delegates if time permits. Thank you all for the patient listening, and to you, SR.
Thank you, President Madhav, for the introduction, for the welcome, and for the directions. And since Madhav already had spoken quite eloquently on the subject, I'm not going to revisit that and restart the subject because we will save time on that. We have three high ampere individuals in front of us who have so much of things to offer as far as Kerala's development is concerned. But suffice to say that I will just repeat what Madhav had said, that is, we at KMA are thinking on how to bring positive perspective to the state's development. That is one aspect, because we can go on discussing about Kerala in the way that it has been happening till the cows come back home. But I think we would like to avoid that and go into the positive perspective, trying to find out what we need and what we don't need, and on how to manage people's aspirations as well as people's objections, and building up a state where all of us can live peacefully, work peacefully, and live very well. And that is what it is. Of course, as President said, that the subject, there was also comments about it that some of the words used is like conundrum, etc., being confusing. So I think it adds to the confusion further. Don't you worry, okay? Because as it is, it's a very confusing subject. So conundrum also adds to the subject. So therefore, there is something to chew upon. Okay. My immediate action will be to introduce these three wonderful gentlemen and then initiate the discussion. In the meanwhile, I'm sure all of you must have muted your, because to avoid distraction, muted your mobile or the phone. And if you have any questions, please put it on the chat mode. I will identify you and I will speak on. I will ask the questions to the panelists on your behalf, provided we have the time. We are trying to see if we can save time, but then some of the introductions has to be done. Okay. Now I have the introduction of the senior most person in this group and one of the most reckoned individual, Mr. Vasudevan Suresh, V. Suresh for short. Okay. So if I have to really start introducing this whole panel discussion, time will go by that, because that lengthy an achievement and that lengthy a profile that he has. But I'll try to do justice. Okay. Mr. Vasudevan Suresh is a civil engineer from Anna University with 56 years of professional experience in housing, infrastructure, rural and urban development, real estate development, and built environment sectors leading to sustainable development. He started his career with Tamil Nadu Public Works Department and later on switched to Bureau of Indian Standards, and was directly associated with the formulation of the National Standards and Code and National Building Codes. And he was the vice chairman, and many committee member, etc. onto that. And he served HUDCO in the capacity as in various capacities for 23 and a half years. Okay, until June 2002. During his period, HUDCO registered all-round growth, including infrastructure development and financing with techno-financial assistance with innovative options, establishing housing retail finance, development of appropriate technology applications, establishment of national network of building centers, disaster mitigation, rehabilitation projects, etc., etc. And as you know, he retired as the CMD of HUDCO in the year 2002. Later, he became the principal executive officer and later on the director of HIRCO Group, that is Hiranandani Group of Constructions. And he was there for first years and building up some of those integrated projects in near Chennai as well as in Panvel and Mumbai. Okay, and he worked in various government of India expert groups on housing, urban development, building technologies, disaster mitigation, and sustainable development, and was chairman of Government of India Task Force on Odisha Cyclone and Chamoli Earthquake. He was member of the Government of India Technical Advisory Committee on Real Estate Housing Price Indices. He is presently the member of Government of India Task Force on Rural Housing and Habitat. He is also the member of Government of India Expert Group on Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Mission under Ministry of Rural Development. He is a member of the Expert Appraisal Committee of Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change for Environmental Impact Assessment Clearance for larger infrastructure projects that are happening in the country. He was a chairman of the Government of Kerala Task Force on Housing, dealing with Kerala Housing and Habitat Policy. Member of Government of India National Housing Policy on Group and Housing Finance. Mr. Suresh was president of Indian Building Congress and National Real Estate Development Council. There have been many other positions that he has taken. Due to positive time, I am restricting myself. Mr. Suresh is the member of CIA National Council on Real Estate and Housing. Okay, and CIA panel on urbanization and future cities. He is a member of International Property Measurement Standards, Standard Setting Committee, and chairman of Institute of Engineers India, Certification of Professional Engineers. He represented India in many bodies and including UNIDO, UNDP, SAR, KDB, USAID, etc., in various facets of sustainable and safe human settlement for different global contexts. He served for 17. Oh, he had received many awards, 17 of them very distinguished. I'll just read out one or two of them. Best Chief Executive of the Year by National Foundation of Engineers. IMM Millennium Top CEO Award for Excellence in 2000. Okay, Man of the Decade Habitat from International Award for Visitex Foundation. Eminent Engineer Award, Architects Engineering Award, and Engineer Award from Institution of Engineers in various years. Okay, IBC Lifetime Achievement Award in 2014, and Most Impactful Green Leaders Award by World CSR Day and World Sustainability in the year 2017. He is a strong advocate of sustainable development, passionately pursues disaster-resistant, environmental-friendly, ecologically appropriate, and energy-efficient options in built environment and green building movement and climate change initiatives. He is the chairman of CA India Green Building Council, IGBC. Okay, he is also the president of Forum for Critical Utility Services, focus that he had started about a couple of years back. He is working closely with Good Governance India Foundation for 2 decades as president of Good Urban Governance Initiative for meeting the challenges of urbanization and making smart, green, and vibrant cities through work on Municipaliga and Urban News Digest. Mr. Suresh is a Malayali. You will not, most of the people here may not know, but then he has been the patron of Delhi Malayali Council for several years. He is now settled in currently settled in Trivandrum. How many of you know? I don't know. Okay, and he's staying in one of the lorry workers' wonderful creations in Trivandrum. Okay, his dad is from Alleppey and his mom from Palgai. Okay, but he is a global citizen for all you know. Okay, that is Mr. Suresh. Please join me in welcome Suresh once again, sir. A great welcome to you. Okay, let me now get into Mr. G. Vijayaraghavan. Okay, now Mr. G. Vijayaraghavan, or GVR as he is known, is a visionary who changed the landscape of IT sector in Kerala. He is the founder CEO of Technopark, Trivandrum, and former member of Kerala State Planning Board. He is also the founder director of National Institute of Speech and Hearing, which is shortly called NISH, and currently the honorary director for Autism and Other Disabilities Rehabilitation Research and Education, otherwise called as CONUNDRUM. Okay, a graduate electrical engineer from University of Kerala, he started his career at HCL and joined Mohsin Haider Darwish LLC in Oman later. Back in Kerala, okay, he became the founder CEO of Technopark, an initiative of Government of Kerala, wherein he conceptualized, planned, implemented, and marketed India's first electronic technopark, that is Technopark Trivandrum, which continues to be one of the best technology centers in India and has a record of having the highest generation of economic activity and employment per unit of geographical area, as well as the highest concentration on FDI. His 40 years of career, which could be more now, also includes several leading roles in government, including being the part of the member of Kerala State Planning Board 2011 to 2016, where he set up the working group for the first time in the areas of disability. He was also the member of a high power committee that conceptualized, implemented, and oversaw several programs, including cochlear implant program, and a member of expert advisory panel constituted by the Government of Kerala to advise on the delivery of digital services to people and corporates. GVR has a keen interest in the world of startups, and he's always found time to interact with and act as a mentor for several startup entrepreneurs. He regularly interacts with them, and he has been continuing that as a passion. Enjoys traveling and has a keen interest in forest and wildlife. He has also made his contribution to literature, Kerala literature, to his book titled Vijaya Valigal, Ende Technopark Smaranagal. Mr. Vijayaraghavan, a great welcome to you. Let me now come to Mr. V.K. Matthews. Okay, it is the most shortest and the crisp of the resumes that I read out to you. This also could have been another 2 kilometers if I really wanted to go through, but I had been made into a very concise one. Mr. V.K. Matthews is the founder and executive chairman of IBS Group of Companies. Matthews founded IBS Software, which is IBS, we call it as IBS, in 1997, with a vision to redefine the future of travel through technology innovation. Today, IBS is a leading enterprise software as a service, which is called SaaS company for the global travel, transportation, and logistics industries. Many of the world's largest and most renowned airlines, airports, ground handlers, hotel companies, cruise lines, and energy companies use IBS SaaS platform for managing their mission critical operation. IBS global clientele of over 190 travel companies include world's best in the sector that they operate. 20 of the top 40 airlines, 5 of the top 10 hospitality companies, and 3 of the top 10 oil companies in the world use IBS software products. Matthews is a thought leader and a specialist in aviation and travel business. He holds several important positions in government agencies, academia, and trade bodies of India, including NASSCOM, the premier trade body of IT BPO industries in India, and has served as NASSCOM's regional council chairman. And he has also served as chairman of the Confederation of Indian Industries, Kerala State Council. Mr. Matthews holds a master's degree in aeronautical engineering, and now ended up in doing software development for aerospace aeronautical sector. Aeronautical engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, and had executive management education from Harvard, the famed Harvard Business School, USA. Sir, a great welcome to you as well. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Matthews. Okay, so we go into the moderating of the subject, that is Kerala's developmental conundrum. Now there had been some question as to why you're using this Kadjal Potatawaka. Okay, now let me also for your understanding redefine or give you the meaning of conundrum, which is a confusing and difficult problem, or a confusing and a difficult question, and that is conundrum. It is written as conundrum. It is spelt as conundrum. Thank you. Okay. Now, we have, with the permission of Mr. Suresh, the senior most person, sir, I would start with Mr. V.K. Matthews because he's a proponent of the development. He had been vociferously going across various panels. So I'll start with him so that we'll get some input on that. Then I'll come to you so that you can actually give your expert comments on that, Mr. Suresh. Okay. And same with Mr. GVR, sir. I'll come back to you on this. So let me start with Mr. Matthews. Okay. Sir, given a chance, I mean, I said we are actually going to discuss the positive aspect of it. I don't want to go into what happened, why are we doing it, why this road, why this express highway, blah, 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 we'll avoid it. So I'll start with you on a conceptual framework as well as an understanding as far as Kerala, what Kerala needs. Given a chance that Kerala can afford, which are the three key important developmental projects that Kerala must undertake immediately as the need of the hour? We'll begin with that, sir.
Okay, so thank you. Great meeting the eminent fellow panelists. SR, thank you. As we all know, if we don't know where we want to go, any road will take us there. So I think it is important for us to look at where we want to get to. In other words, what should be the vision for our state before we set out to getting to that place. So when about 8 years back, when I was heading the CII organization in Kerala, we coined a vision statement for the state. And it's a very simple but a loaded one. And what I said was, the vision for Kerala should be the finest place to live and work. And let that be our vision. And we can even shorten it to say the finest place to live. Because if it's a good place to live, I'm quite sure it would be a great place to work as well. So if that is our vision, I have thought about what should be important for us, and also taking into account where we stand today. I will put 4 major things. One, I would say clean Kerala.
Okay.
If we envision the finest place to live and work, the number 1 is clean Kerala. Number 2 is safe Kerala. I'll explain what it means. Safe Kerala. Number 3 is digital Kerala or digitally enabled Kerala. And number 4, I would say reforming Kerala, meaning that reforms should be a continuous process in our development agenda. I'll say what I meant by clean Kerala. I mean this: clean surroundings, clean waters, whether that is our backwaters, rivers, or streams, and also clean roads, clean premises, clean neighborhood. And it is extremely important for us, and we struggle and suffer from this. And the interesting thing is, all of that problem, if at all we live in unclean surroundings, is created by us, and we should be able to address this. So all of this is pointing towards waste management as a very high priority thing for us. Yeah. And I think it is important for us to note that we used to take pride in the fact that Trivandrum used to be ordered as the best city, cleanest city. Today, we don't have even a single city in the top 20 clean cities in the country.
That's right.
I think that's something which we should really look at. And this number 2, so
Safe.
This will lead to your question, is safe Kerala. And what I mean by that is safe to eat food, safe to drink water, safe and efficient transportation infrastructure, and safety from disasters. This is what I mean by safe Kerala. If our citizens can have safe drinking water and safe to eat food, I don't want to say organic food, I would like to say safe to eat food, and safe and efficient transportation, which is very important. And also safety from disasters, considering and everything that has happened and that we have faced during the last 3-4 years from disasters. So that's what I talk as safe Kerala.
Okay.
And the third piece,
Digital Kerala.
digital Kerala or digitally enabled Kerala. The very purpose here is to completely digitize government citizen services. For citizens, all the services should now be possible and available through digital means. I would like to bring this again point that Kerala still is at the 28th rank when it comes to ease of doing business. Now, how do we improve that? And one of the ways we can improve that is by digitizing. And Kerala is absolutely the best state to do that, because if you really look at mobile penetration in Kerala is 126. That means for every person we have 1.26 phones, of which 65% is smartphones, and our internet penetration is more than 85%. So we are absolutely a great state for us to digitally consume. So if the services can be made available digitally and in a manner that we reduce citizens' interaction with the government, and that's where the difficulties come, I think that will be a great thing. So that's what my third point, digital Kerala. And the last point, which again, from this will come, what are the important projects? Reforming Kerala. For us, why is ease of doing business so difficult? Is because we stick to dated, antiquated, policies, norms and laws. So I think reform has to be at the core of our agenda in reality. So I would say reforming Kerala, one of the things that we should do is to check each local body or the departments of the government, what reforms have they brought about? It should be one of the key performance areas and for measurement for the government. How many reforms have they brought about? Otherwise, we are sitting on the same thing. So if we can have our place, clean Kerala, safe Kerala, digitally enabled Kerala, and reforming Kerala, then I think we have a very good chance to become the finest place to live. Finest place does not mean that it is the richest and the most opulent place. The finest place has different meaning, and I'm quite sure Suresh Vasudevan would talk about it. Finest place mean that we live in sync with the nature and we live at peace with the nature. But that does not also mean anything and everything in the nature is natural. We cannot do anything in the nature. So, of course, we talk about the wetlands. So I'm only saying, Azhar, that we should not get, when we take it too far, it becomes in a way unsustainable. For example, the wetlands that we have created today and which we hold on to is actually by cutting the hills and leveling it when the actual agricultural revolution came.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So this is where I say I haven't said the projects, but which I'll say later. So
right, I understand. Thank you very much. Yes, okay, that's great. Okay, now GVR sir, just I want you to butt in here because I would like to know. Okay, that is in the overall developmental framework that what we are thinking. In your opinion, what does Kerala need and where are we now? See whether we need all these or what do we need, and if we need, what are all the things that we are doing about it? A brief summation so that I can go to Suresh sir and then take his views on both of your views actually. Yes. Sir, you're muted. Sir,
you're muted.
Yeah,
okay.
I would
Please
say
start all over again. Yeah.
fully agree with what BK talked about, those 4 areas.
Yeah.
And I would say that those are what I would call hygiene factors.
Okay.
That is something which there should be no compromise on. And I don't think any political party is going to oppose any of those things. They will all agree for it. But the problem comes when you want to implement some of them. You will find that there are small areas where there are some small fragmented groups or others, and the political parties don't want to actually get into an issue with them. So they would say, let us delay it, let us do something about it. So clearly my thing, and what I've been telling politicians on both sides for the last several years, we need to develop, and maybe KMA can take the lead on that, develop a political consensus on development. All right, we say, what do we do? What do we want? What do we not want? For example, very clearly, we need to say that we only want industries which will create the largest employment per unit of area, which will create the largest employment per unit of power, and which will have zero pollution. If we can stipulate things like that, then there is no mad rush on, going after every project which is coming into India. So we need to be very clear on that. And I would say it is necessary even for, the government to say, these are the projects that we have. Ask the opposition, tell me which are the ones you agree with. So what really happens then is that you're creating a consensus, and the government can say at the end, good, on all that you've said, you agree with us, we go ahead. But there are a few which I don't care, you may oppose, but we'll go ahead with that also. All right, which is the right of the government in power to decide what they want to do. So I think it is necessary to build up a consensus on development across political lines. And if the note that you sent and what you were discussing earlier, very clearly, one of the biggest problems that Kerala has is not what is proposed. It is who has proposed it. Okay, if somebody proposes something, then you need to oppose it.
We oppose.
Okay, if you're on the other side.
Right.
All right, now the interesting thing is that everyone in private, okay, there is already a consensus.
Okay.
But many a time they are playing to the gallery.
Yes.
Right? So it is sometimes very difficult to tell somebody don't oppose, because the interesting thing is many a time what somebody proposes is what they opposed 2 years or 3 years ago.
Absolutely.
All right. So this is something where there is a lot of what I would call political hypocrisy, and many of us don't want to call it out. And just look at simple examples like private colleges. All right. Look at it, or you don't want autonomous institutions in the state.
Yes.
You don't want private universities in the state.
Yes.
And I have said in many forums, including with very senior politicians, that initially the businessmen sent their children outside the state for higher education.
No,
then the bureaucrats sent, and now the politicians also send. So you look at where the children of politicians are studying. They are studying in autonomous private universities. They are studying outside the country. And you will find that there is no problem. When it is okay for me, but not okay for the people of Kerala, is something which we can't accept. So, and I would say it is necessary for that to come out in the form of a political consensus on development, for which a political body cannot become the mediator or the catalyst for. And it is professional bodies or individuals who need to really become the catalyst for that kind of, and that is the only way you will see that happen. The other big problem that we have is a lack of transparency many a time. Okay, there is a lack of transparency on, irrespective of who is there. Somehow they believe that, if it's a project, I don't want to discuss with anybody until it takes off. All right. And that again is because for some reason you will find that the preparation of these projects, all right. And I'm talking of multiple projects I have seen. I mean, whether it's a UDF or the LDF, you would have seen projects which come up without proper planning, without proper documentation and studies. And then it is brought out, and then it becomes a controversy. So clearly it is necessary for transparency on any major project that we do.
Well said.
And I will just stop, the BK mentioned about, the clean cities. Okay, you look at our water bodies.
Yes.
All right. Can you drink water from anywhere in Kumaraga if you pull it out of if you just raise, you can't. You have the Trivandrum, you have the Veli Lake, Veli Akulam Lake. Okay. That place is where I have actually, I don't swim, but we went into a boat and with life jacket, I jumped into the water when I was studying for my pre-degree, which is over 45 years ago. All right. Mm-hmm. That place is actually like a cesspool today.
Indeed.
The fact is, it is a cesspool, because what has happened is that you have from all, and the number of projects that have been given for that to beautify that place are so huge that if that money was spent there, that place would have looked like Geneva.
Understand.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the problem here is there is a lack of thing in terms of what we do, and there is a big failure in implementation.
Right, sir. I totally agree with you, but the fact is that we have been speaking on this for the last 30 years. I mean, same thing, transparency issues, same thing, political consistency, same thing, all these things we have been talking of for years, but we have not been able to reach any consensus so far, which you mentioned, at the first as you started it. I go to Suresh sir. Suresh sir, thank you very much for your patience. Okay, now, see, I would take you as a global citizen, a person who had been there and done that, whether it is Kerala, whether it is India, whether it is across the world. Okay, so I take it with that level of an understanding, I come to you as an eminent engineer and an expert in sustainable development, particularly in housing, habitat, and urban matters. Okay, what do you think that Kerala is focusing? What do you think Kerala must focus on? Whereas, what do you think that Kerala is going to?
I think at the very first instance, first of all, congratulations for organizing interaction like this through the KMA. You can hear me? You can hear me?
We can. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah.
We can.
So, yeah, very good. I think one of the first things that we need to do is to bring back hope. And that's an important thing of an attitudinal change among everybody. There's a general feeling that nothing is going to happen. You know, type of extreme pessimism has got to be removed. And you said many things can happen because wherever Keralites have been there in different parts of the country and abroad, they have always shown successful results in various areas of work. Their capabilities, competence, and ability to show results have already been proven beyond doubt. But why is it that we are not able to do it here? So we will first get out this, but bring back hope, bring back positivity, get that negative element of nothing is going to happen, etc. And that attitude will change. If you want to change the landscape of the state, the mindscape of everybody concerned as well. When he said, I entirely agree with Vijayaragan sir, that when he said mindscape has got to change, it has got to be not only with the ruling plus also opposing government, not only at the state level, at the local body level, even institutions, because they're all divided amongst us to do or not to do. And there are doers and non-doers in both sides over there because somebody is taking an initiative, they want to kill that. That shouldn't be. You got to learn from Tamil Nadu, whether ADMK does it or DMK does it, automobile industry comes one after another. You have seen the way in which the biggest hub of automobile has come over there in whole of Tamil Nadu. The way in which the textiles have come over there, be it Tirupur or Erode or Salem or whatever. You know, any industry that matters over there, any government that comes, this is going to be for the good of the state. Identify 10 different things which are good for good of the state in terms of what is good for social development. We are supposed to be reasonably good on all the human development index. We keep on tom-tomming that we are at the top there in terms of whatever it may be, the no child death, in terms of all the other things we are good. But that is not enough. So one is social issues on that and find out what are the things we can do for the physical development, economic development, and also the spatial development. Kerala is going to go through a very, very major thing spatially because what was at one point of time only 27% of whole Kerala being only urban. I'm talking of 2001 census, not too many years back. It came down to around 47% in last 2011. We're going to be around 64% urban by 2021 census. We are all 2022. By the time you finish the census, you will find a major demographic shift is happening between a rural to an urban context there. And therefore, the spatial development becomes an important component there. So in that area, I think you should clearly identify which are all the areas where the development things should come. What Mr. Matthew said and what Vijayarajan said is absolutely dot on, because they've shown themselves what brilliant thing can happen over there. Can we identify sector-wise what is that we can do in the sector of agriculture? Even agriculture, I'm not talking about the way in which it's happening in Punjab or Haryana or Andhra Pradesh, etc. I'm talking here in sectors like coir or rubber or various other things which are coconut or pineapple or whatever. Identify the various other items in which value addition can be brought in and sectors can be added largely. I was a consultant of Coir Board somewhere in 2004-05. We identified a fantastic blueprint. We should have on the top on the coir sector. Now, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Orissa has already gone much beyond us. Sri Lanka has gone much beyond that particular thing. We have lost space for all of them. Somewhere down the line, in spite of the potential being there, we have lost that particular thing. So similarly, on the rubber and related area, we got to see on agriculture sector. Our education sector is a very major component. Why don't we identify, if production is our problem there, identify how can you bring the best centers of excellence in engineering education, medical education, legal education, other types of education or higher secondary. Get a few centers of excellence coming over there. Let people come over. Why did Manipal grow in such a major way? It doesn't do any production. It only does just about good education. Everybody comes over there. It's the biggest driver of that. Healthcare, best possible centers of healthcare. Why can't you do that? We don't not going to produce big things over there. Just good healthcare to our nursing team are good. Our doctors are good. Best professional things are there. But still, once it comes to extreme good quality care, we think let's go to Vellore, let's go to Mumbai, or let's go to some other place. We got to identify 10 to 15 such centers of excellence over there for healthcare. And healthcare itself can bring in substantial amount of job creation in a very large way in our sector. And that's going to be a very major one. And of course, our own best, God's own country, tourism is one area where we require a major change coming in this particular one to encourage tourism to best possible the point of view of ecotourism and climate-friendly tourism. Tourism which will not destroy your land or air or water. At the same time, use the nature's bounty in a large way. There's a lot of ideas there. There's not the time for me to open out there. And a major one, the one which is the third point, which is about digital component. I entirely agree with Matthew. IT, ICT is going to a very major area where digital area and our people are doing phenomenally well. Some of the good initiatives which Vijayaraman Sir did in the Techno Park, and subsequently some good initiatives coming in Ernakulam. And these are areas where we can bring substantial amount of innovations coming in this particular sector. And therefore, I would put a lot of emphasis on this. All these particular things can lead to phenomenal employment generation. Employment generation cannot come from the government side. There's no way it can happen on that. No way it can happen. So employment is a very important component. How to bring startups in a large way. MSME has got to come in a way. We are not done sufficiently good enough for MSME to spring it for substantial enterprise creation. Large number of the districts can have enterprise development coming over there, be it Palakkad or Trichy or Calicut, including Trivandrum and nearby area, even, and depending upon the sector in which we can work on. I identified roughly around 108 sectors where the MSME can phenomenally contribute and do it. And a lot of support is coming over there. Technology help is coming in a way. Financial help is coming in a large way. Government of India, the highest level, is trying to give it a push over there. Don't put all like the big industries which can have pollution problem. That's not the thing for us. But education cannot pollute. Health cannot pollute. This MSMEs need not pollute. The tourism need not pollute. So get into those areas which are easier to manage. And therefore, that's going to be important. And most importantly, bring positivity that investment going to come over there will be protected. And we encourage bring that. How is it that where Tamil Nadu gets, Karnataka gets, Gujarat gets, Maharashtra gets, every year investments coming into large number of projects there. Why? Because they're able to give a facilitating environment, an enabling environment by which industry can come. There is a sense of protection that industry will be supported by the government in all way in terms of support of the land policy or power policy or water policy or labor policy or related one. Create that. And that first important message that can get across that provide enabling environment for investors to come over there to put money. And take my word, you cannot get any product coming just only from the government side or borrowing money by the government. Yes, it will make a phenomenal amount of what can I say, if you want the 85,000 crores you bought for a KRIL project only on the loan amount component to come from the, and it's going to be a big burden on people. Now, you can find out any particular responsible government has got to bring investment in the private sector. A good example, again, our own good airport project which has come in Nedibish area. I do remember case initiative, we put in our money when nobody came over there. And mind you, Kerala showed the way. From one point, it was 51, 49%, 51 government and 49% private sector coming over there. Today, I do not know how many people in this forum know it is a 26, 74%. Government have only 26% of the equity of the company, and 74% is looked after by the others. We could make a successful public-private people's partnership project, which is also being divided to the particular one, because you've gotten a good amount of, like that, so many projects can be brought in over there, and investments will come. People are ready to invest wherever positivity is there. They know this will take off. This will be for the general good of the people. General good of the people.
Yes,
that's more important thing. You should be able to show, as Vijayaraman said, take all such projects which is going to be for the overall good of the project, both rural and urban, and create an environment for employment generation, economic development, social development, all that. I do agree, equity has got to be kept in view. Bottom of the pyramid has to be taken into account. Disadvantaged, marginalized people have to be taken into account. You can always bring in schemes where they are supported. But only when you develop, you create wealth. Only get wealth, you can distribute that. You can't distribute that only by taking money on loan and then distribute that particular money. That is not, populism is one thing. Populism is one thing. But at the end of the day, if it's got to be sustainable, you got to create economic wealth, and that's the only way the overall prosperity will come in a very large way. As I said, it's got to be covering social, it's got to be spatial, it's got to be also physical, economic. All the developments will come. Sectors I already told, we can work on that. But first and most important thing is, as Vijay said, consensus on development is very important. And that should be the DNA for the whole state's development. We all wanted to develop. Why is it that at the age of 78, after being outside for so many years, I come over here and I'm in Trivandrum now? It's because a lot of things can happen. It's happening all over the country. Is happening all across the world. It's happening. Why is that we can't make it happen here unless we are on a suicidal note not to make it happen? Is that so? The very discussion forum is therefore try how to convert that particular attitudinal change from that of pessimism down to optimism, but go through a realism route in between. It can't come to pendulum cannot swing to the right side. You have to go through a process by bringing consensus among the people. Yeah, youth can be taken into account in a very large way.
Yes, sir. I would take your break now. I would seek your break now because I'll come back to you. Thank you very much. In fact, you have covered practically all aspects of the industry. You spoke about the consensus. You spoke about what is that we require, etc. But you started by saying, that is what I again come back to. You started by saying, see, we just see that, I would like to put this question to both Mr. Matthew as well as Vijay Raghavan sir, telling that, we are a very loud, argumentative, critical democratic society that we have. Very loud, very argumentative, very critical democratic society that we have. And we feel that it is the behaviors that we need to manage. It is the behaviors that we need to manage.
Yes.
And do we need to bring in these world-class standards? How do we manage these behaviors? Matthew sir, I'll start with you, then I'll go to GVR sir. Please.
Yeah, it's So thank you, Vijay and Suresh Vasudevan for wonderful comments. Now, it is a reality, and we cannot close our eyes towards that. Politics has transformed to become something for the politicians, and the politicians to stay in power or to come back to power. It is a reality. That's how it is. Now, so mostly anything and everything that they will do will be with that objective. If you are not in power, you have to come back to power. If you are in power, you continue in power.
Yes.
So they have a politically driven agenda. So they would respond to, so typically they will not do things which are important but not urgent. And they usually are in a crisis management mode rather than managing by objectives.
Yes.
So this is a reality, and that change to that will only be slow. But I was actually looking at few things that we can think of in the context of Kerala.
Yes.
One, what can be a new development model? And I'm also assuming, SR, the purpose of this session is to, if at all, it would improve our mindset.
Indeed, that is where we are.
If it can actually contribute to change, nothing else is going to happen. but that, because otherwise we will take the minutes and then we will make some more representation to the government. But I think it's more about the mindset change.
Yes.
And starting with ourselves, and then probably to the society at large, and assuming that is the objective.
Yes.
In my view, there are few things that we can absolutely do. One, if we take this particular slogan, which is now enabled by COVID and accelerated by COVID as a technology trend, if we can make this slogan to work and then work backwards, that is work from Kerala.
Okay.
It is absolutely now possible for our people to be here and working for a company in Noida, in Mumbai, or in Australia, or in Canada. We can, it is possible, and it is really happening. I'll tell you an example. Typically, when we implement a project where the flight operations or engineering maintenance, it literally takes 40, 50 of our people going to that location, working there for a couple of years for that transformation project to undertake. But during COVID, we could not do, and many of the airlines wanted to also do some of the transformation changes because the business load is very low. And we were able to do much of those transformations without even a single person traveling. We have taken LATAM, the largest airline in South America, with 11 airlines, the combination of 11 airlines. Their entire flight operations, crew operations, disruption handling was transformed with 0 site visit.
I see.
What I'm saying is that is applicable to a lot of things now that's sitting from here. Now, why should we insist that our best and the brightest minds should be in Kerala? Is because that's where the spending takes place. Ladies and gentlemen, when 100,000 rupees is, when somebody has a salary of 50,000 or 100,000, it creates so much of multiplier effect. 80% of that is spent, then another 80% is spent. GST is coming and the government is getting money, economic activity. So, but how will we make this happen? How do we say that our people should be, our children should be, our young generation should be working from Kerala? All of them aspire to study outside and work outside, and they are. And most of the people who work against the projects, particularly the infrastructure projects, their children are all settled outside. And I don't want to be disrupted. I want my scenery. I want my this one. I don't want to be disrupted. We can't blame them, because that is the situation that they are in. But if we were to be having our young generation to be working from our state and then spending here, again, we talked about, Mr. Vasavan talked about the HDI. We are still leading, but marginally leading above Punjab and Goa. We are very close to them.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why we are not able to go above that 0.79 mark is because this is, as you all of you know, it's a composite measure of health education and per capita economic output.
Yes.
And health and education, we have done one, at least from a primary point of view.
Yeah.
But when it comes to per capita, we are sliding down.
Yes.
And the reason why we are sliding down is because we don't have any enterprises here, which will create meaningful jobs for the economy to pick up.
Yeah.
So work from Kerala. And if we can do, I have 3 things. Now I will answer your first question here. If we were to be making work from Kerala a reality, we have to make sure that we have the right infrastructure, physical and social infrastructure.
Absolutely.
We need to have the physical and social infrastructure. The number 1 physical infrastructure that we should work is waste management. And we have written, studied 2,000 times, volumes have been written for last 15, 20 years about waste management, central, distributed. Our distributed waste management is actually going and throwing the waste around.
Yeah.
I'm actually sitting in a place where outside I can see at least 100,000 plastic bags of waste.
Yes.
I can see from here in this office. Now, we should be able to, we must have centralized, at least for all the corporations and the municipalities. And we can have decentralized waste, but without that, it is an impossibility. Where will the waste be managed? So waste management is extremely important. The second one, I would say, I would say this is another change. It's more of a reform. We should change from the concept of go-go to go-co. Remember in the US, government-owned, government-operated was completely changed, including in research field, to go-co. That is government-owned and contractor-operated. Just look at the case where the passport management service was given to TCS.
Yes.
The improvement that we can actually see. You and me will pay an additional fee to get a government service. Let the government enact the rules, regulation. They own it, and rightly so. But why can't, I'm just taking the name of TCS, or it can be TCS, Wipro, Infosys. I take their name because they manage the most complex business processes in the world today.
Understand, yes.
So if they can do that, the KMBR building management rule, they can interpret and they can give an approval. No. So if we can make a little bit of a change like that, we want to really make work from Kerala work. We want to have the infrastructure. And now the second infrastructure that I will talk about, and probably the most path-breaking, according to me, in all earnestness, I can say is Silver Line. It is not going to divide the state. It is going to make the place accessible. Think about Kottayam or Kollam. Kottayam will become 35 minutes in the Nedumbasheri airport, but today it is 3 hours. Kollam has no future otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, because they don't have access to an airport. It will take 3 hours for them to go to an airport. Now, Calicut from here, from Cochin, 1 hour, 17 minutes. And why northern part of Kerala has not developed as much as other parts or central parts is because they don't have access, because you can't even go there. How many of the people have gone to Kannur? This project is not going to divide, it is going to unify by making places absolutely accessible, in my view. So it's an important project like the waste management project. And of course, this project is getting executed in a state like Kerala. So we will have to worry about the briberies and the commissions and the corruptions and also the execution risk and the funding feasibility, and all of that is there. But again, keep in mind, this is the greenest project that we can have for mass transportation.
Right.
And if it is possible, so if we can, we cannot change all of our people and say that it will not be, we cannot, because that's what we have. And
Well
we
said,
have
sir.
to.
Very
So
well said.
I covered quite a few points, and
Indeed, yes,
I
indeed, yes.
my favorite
And
topics.
lots of which are making sense, and that was also a continuum of what you said in the beginning. I come to Jayaraghavan sir with the same question, sir. But before that, I also want to add 1 or 2 elements to this. See, we are talking about, all of us know everything. All of us know what is important. All of us, in fact, Suresh sir has been very vociferous and very vehement in telling which are all the areas that we can locate it. All that is there. But then this is what we have been telling for the last 30 years, Vijay sir. Last 30 years, we have been telling only this. See, if you look at it, he just mentioned transportation. I don't want to take the project by name, but 30 years back, 25 years back, somebody said, let's have a road. Now they said, let's have a rail. So, but what is the fact? The fact is that the necessity is very much imminently deemed. Now, we cannot say, close our eyes and say that, okay, this cannot be done. And particularly in a state like Kerala, where to get consensus, as you rightly said, is difficult, and the funding actually doesn't happen. So projects like this come and go, but we have not been able to manage the behavior of the people, the denizens, the media, the opposition, as you rightly said, who only oppose. So how do we make a change there behaviorally? What do we do on this, Jayaraghavan sir?
I would say that, look at areas where I see political consensus on. The entire focus of, I was also on the planning board for the last several decades, has been build up infrastructure, attract companies to come here, improve the healthcare. I would say if you turn it around, that the focus of the government is to create employment out of Kerala. All right?
Yes.
If they say that the focus becomes creating employment of Kerala, and every department works with that as one of their key result areas, where they are measured not on the amount of money they spend,
yes,
okay, but they are measured on the number of jobs they create or the number of jobs they facilitate.
Yes.
If you can make that, like for example, if a panchayat is given today. You give a panchayat an award or a municipality an award for being clean, okay?
Yes.
Or it seems to say how many get. And you go in terms of recognizing that and supporting project. Nobody's going to oppose. The rest of it will come in on its own. What will happen is you will find that the bureaucrats will change their attitude. The Panchayat secretary will not stop a unit from coming. He will help them to ensure that they come within the laws, and he will say that you need to create employment.
Yes.
So if we can go to that, I think that is one big change that can happen.
Yes.
Is that a mission which the state will put forward to say we create? And here I should also say, if you look at, it's not being critical of what the statements that have been made, but there was a statement in the earlier state budget, the last one, and the one which came in after this, after the government came in, telling that you're going to create 20 lakh jobs
Yes,
in the gig economy. No, 20 lakh jobs in the gig economy. All right?
Yes, it is. Knowledge
and the gig economy, the way one looks at it, can only be IT-enabled services to a great extent. There is some little bit of it, but in a way, they all fall within that. Altogether, in India, you've got only 40 lakh jobs there. So the problem is, people there. I know what happened, but now it is very difficult for them to go back on it, because I think 4 or 5 people went and gave some calculation, said there are so many engineers who passed out, half of them are women, most of them got married, they are back here, and therefore all these women will get jobs. BK knows, if you talk to Mr. Matthew, you'll know, you interview and test 100 people, you will get 7 the universities in Kerala. So if you want to create employment, you have to focus on higher education. Higher education quality, it is not enough to tinker with the university system. You have to break it up and rebuild it.
Yes.
You actually have to allow new institutions to come in. And higher education is something which will create. The other one which is there, and it's something very, now everybody is talking of knowledge economy. You talk to them about knowledge economy, they all tell IT jobs are. IT jobs are. The fact is that tourism creates more jobs than IT does.
Indeed.
When you talk of knowledge economy, there is a lot more there. Okay. There is so much in Ayurveda. You look at the number of jobs today. You go to Sri Lanka, you think that Ayurveda was born there.
Yes, it is.
The way they promote it, the way where the airport does it, the way the hotels do it. So clearly there is a lot of our own knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge which we have in other areas. The other one, which is there, again, I'm talking of, talking of a new Kerala, people were not opposed, is agripreneurs. Talk about agriculture entrepreneurs. The number of Malayalis who have farmlands in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka is so high.
Indeed.
But for that, there is a holy cow which you have to touch.
Yes.
And that is called the
Land
Kerala Land Utilization or the Kerala Land Ceiling Act.
Yes.
Nobody wants to touch it. So you have the mid-altitude tea, which is a loss. Okay. You have people who got rubber estates, which are going to be a problem very soon. But this guy can have 25 acres of land, but our law does not allow 25 acres of vegetables.
Yes.
Because if you got 25 acres of vegetables, government will take 10 point something away because you can't own more than 15 acres.
15 acres.
So the thing is that you have to touch these, and people need to talk to government or the politician and say, do this. When you talk to them today, all of them agree. I asked the chief minister at a meeting. In fact, people on this call, many of whom know me, I don't even drink wine. Okay. But I've been telling what's wrong in Kerala producing wine, pie-based wine, banana-based wine. What is wrong in tapioca-based alcohol? The employment generation. So I asked the CM about this, and CM said there is no problem. And when I walked out, I called up somebody and they said, CM parnada, excise rule doesn't allow. Look at something which was introduced several years ago with Neera. So tasty.
Yes.
Okay. But it is coming under excise. It's not coming under somebody else. The excise fellow says, no, you might convert that into color. And he doesn't give it. So the problem is that at the end of the day, we are talking about it. We are not prepared to make those changes. So we need to expose.
Isn't that a leadership issue? Isn't that a leadership issue?
Statesmanly leadership.
It is not a leadership alone issue. It is not a leadership alone issue. It is a mindset issue. And the mindset is not, so let us say, for example, I told you the CM agreed, wine can be done. Okay. But then you go down, they say, yo, okay. Association. So that is what happens, is you are bothered about.
And this is
to
happening.
Some extent,
and the interesting thing is, Vijay, this is happening in a state where the per capita alcohol consumption is high.
In fact, suddenly
And the
the highest
tax
in the
is
country.
100,000%, 1,000% tax.
Even
No,
this
so-
meeting
so
was
I
energized by
only
the
said-
mention of alcohol by Vijay Raghavan. Actually, everybody was glued to the TV. Suddenly, the mention of alcohol came. I saw the ears going up. So let.
No. No. In fact, I actually have said, look, today, what are you doing? You're only collecting your consumer fed and your Bevco profit and your tax on it. You get your tax from the manufacturing point itself. Your pineapple gets better value. You create more jobs here. When you create jobs, they spend it. Okay. So the thing is that is something which today, frankly speaking, every politician I've spoken to, good. But who's going to build
one thing, but I just
who's going to say
tell us 1 or 2 or 3 points telling that, okay, let us do this to change the behavior. Let us do this to go and talk to people. Let us engage them. Let us not leave them aside. Can we? Is there any action plan?
I can tell you.
Yeah.
I can tell you from very small experience of Technopark.
Yeah.
Okay, where we did the land acquisition. Okay, we bought land from the university. We did the rest of it. 180 acres was acquired when I was there. We looked at it in a completely different manner. There were all the environmentalists were here at that time. Okay, there were local people, but it was done in a manner by which we actually said, without anybody asking us, we will plant more trees than the trees that we cut. Okay, and we actually brought in 6 foot, 7 foot high trees and then planted them, which were much better than what was there earlier, because earlier it was just this thing. The second thing was, for every house which was acquired, but I wrote, because somebody asked this question when I was part of that open letter to the CM. Somebody asked this question in one of the groups, I think the Thai group, and I explained every household that was evicted, I personally visited them, and I told them this is the way we will handle it.
But that's
I can
okay,
also
sir.
tell you that,
See, since you said about that particular word, I'm just coming to you because I saw your signature on that document that has been sent to the government. But actually speaking, all this activity that you do from a perspective of the goodness, for the common good that you have actually worked upon this. But are these not taking the projects back in time? That is the problem, isn't it, sir?
no, it is not. So if you look at that letter, well, I know because I actually worked heavily to ensure that the letter is not opposing the project. If you read that letter, the letter does not say no to the project. The letter only asks certain questions. The letter says, do you have a transportation vision for the state? Does it say, it says, have you looked at the other methods of transportation? Does the state have the financial, well, when I was in the planning board, was when report. Okay, it was interesting that East Sridharan this project now, but East Sridharan through DMRC prepared a report. It was a 1 lakh crore project for the high-speed rail. Okay, yeah. And I said it is more than our 5-year plan. All right, and I said unless you are prepared to do it in a viability funded model, yes, you have a problem on financing here. Okay, I saw a post which VK had put in this thing talking about, yes, government will do the rail, rail will own the rail and the rest of it will become private. Why isn't the government talking about that now? That is where I talked about earlier, the transparency issue. Okay, if there isn't, so now people will say, it's not only rail, there is land nearby also which they're looking at giving up. The problem is that with people in Kerala, you have to be totally transparent. You have to tell people clearly, this is what I'm going to do till the end. There could be small changes. So clearly what is happening is that project, that 100,000, that 100 lakh, sorry, the 1 lakh crore project, I am the one who actually told Umanchandi it's not going to work. I said it's not going to work because we don't have the money.
Yeah.
So we will not get it unless
we can matter a small sojourn to you. Okay, you can go ahead. Tell me, sir. Yes.
So just to add to what Vijay said.
Yeah.
See, the key point and the most important point for us, because mostly whatever that we are talking is known to us.
Yes.
The key point is how do we make a mindset change?
Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm asking.
What is it that we can do to make a mindset change is what is important. Now, if you really look at it, it is an absolute fact. And people should know every single infrastructure project, whether it is Sial, Express Highway, GAIL, the Vizhinjam project, all of them were opposed. And because some of them were determined to make it happen, and it happened. But it happened after 10 years, 15 years, with much more magnified cost
We lost
and lot
out.
of cost
We lost out, haven't
escalation.
we? Yeah.
And sometimes when it happened, we have outgrown that particular one, the required. See, and how do we make the mindset change? Now, in my one, we can only talk, but basically the mind is with the person who holds it. Now, if we have to know that all the political parties, ideologies are all good, but the actions are the ones which matters for us. And regardless of our individual political leanings, which we all of us have, if we are able to support and oppose based on the merits of the topic, of the initiative, and that is the first step. And is it ever possible for us to do? And if that has to happen like that, what is it that we should do? What is it that we can do to change the mindset? Is the key question.
All right. Okay. We are almost on the last stages of the discussion, but then there's so many things discussed, and I think this sort of a forum we need to discuss hours too, that may not happen. So back to Suresh sir. Suresh sir, actually you spoke about employment actually. Now, we have at this point in time, we have been hearing about the government of Kerala spending about 9,000 crores of rupees to rejuvenate Kerala public sector undertaking so that the employment can be rejuvenated, employment opportunities can be improved. And the other side, they said, okay, 20 lakh employment generation, the knowledge sector, gig economy, etc., combined together. There are many criticisms about it, but then you said about employment generation. So on that, Mr. Vijayaraghavan also mentioned about the quality of education, the autonomous institutions, the higher learning that is required, good skill sets that to be brought out, etc. Otherwise, our human resources Kerala is nothing but a human resource exporter of human resource. Whereas we came back to say that, okay, we should want Kerala to work in Kerala, so that you spend in Kerala, so that the economy goes up and we do well. So what is it that you can suggest for the employment generation than public sector undertaking, Kerala public sector undertaking, which we know for the last 50 years haven't been doing that very well, barring one or two. So how do we actually convince the people who are actually guiding our destiny that there are other methods to create employment generation? You about, sir?
I think the answer lies in services sector. It is not in manufacturing sector or government sector that can produce the employment over there. Concentrate on the services sector, all type of services that will come over there, which is required in your one business, IT services, hospitality services, or various other services that we can think it. There are enormous number of jobs coming over there. And therefore, I want two major things to happen. The nature of education that can be done in our colleges than the vanilla degrees that we keep on bringing. Try to give employment-oriented education to be brought in over. The National Education Policy provides a framework for that. Identify, first of all, a resource mapping for the particular state. What are people with the education background and what type of jobs are required in that? And then find also a skill mapping needed on that. And that's where it's failing. When Vijayaraghavan said that, if 100 others look at their unemployable. So find out what is it that would be good to make the job. What is it that Matthew is looking for and his team in the IT sector? The series of jobs in the hardware, in the software, in the BPO, so many areas. What is it that we fail in that? And therefore, that in skill upgradation has got to come in a very large way. Think of the large number of jobs that have really gone to the other states over there, be it in the building sector, on the lift operator, or the air conditioning people, or the plumbing related sector, or painting, and various large number of skills are required in various areas. Identify. Don't make everybody go to a 12th standard, go through a 3-year degree, all useless. None of them is going to produce jobs on that. Find out those sectors where jobs needed, what type of skill sets are needed over there, and have large numbers. This can be a very good opportunity area, like Karnataka did in Mysore as well as in Manipal in a very large way in production, including Tamil Nadu is also happening now. In a very big way, it's happening there. They are the one contributing to large in the healthcare sector, be it a radiologist or healthcare operator or various other related things, or in the construction sector, hospitality sector, assets and facility management sector. There are large number of sectors there where the nature of jobs require substantial amount of skill. We don't have skill training or certification even now. We don't have that. Actually, a few ITIs which were there, and a few NGOs are running a few institutions to get some jobs, whether it's fire or something of that nature. But you can identify those particular sectors which require these type of jobs and train them in a particular area, but then they got the hands-on experience. Now we don't have the particular hands-on. What can be done hands-on is very, very important, not a paper degree or whatever. Certificates which are employment-based particular things has got to be done in a very, very large way. And whether it's going to be as part of your plus tool or ITA level or some other skill certificate level. So skill mapping is going to be a very, very major area. We have to really concentrate and services sector encouraging. I told SME, I saw on the question box, many people don't want to go SMEs to be brought in. SME is the one best area where maximum number of jobs can be created with the least amount of investment in the sector. Find out all the particular area where we can get into it. How is it that legit puppet can do it and we can't make the puppet over there? We can't get vegetables, we have to get it from outside. Everything we have to get from outside. Why isn't that happening? Well, very nicely, Vijayan told about those type of things. Liquor can that be made from pineapple, or that can be made from various other producers here. If guava can make from cashew they can make it. From pineapple they can make it. Why can't we do it over here? It's all value addition. All products are here, made here, and you can easily do that. So identify those particular value added sectors, jobs, which can be done. It will be different from what we think all students should be. Everybody think that son or daughter should be a doctor or engineer, getting this degree, getting an IT job, 20,000, 30,000, they're happy over there. You can't get, there's a limit to that, such type of jobs coming on that. Vijayan is rightly said, the total potential of the sector for the whole country is of the order about 40 or 50 lakhs or something like that. You can't put all the egg in that particular basket there. You've got to find into other related sectors coming into that. Textiles is a fantastic opportunity. Erode can do, Salem can do, Tirupur can do. I saw in the question box, somebody has very rightly said, even the large what Balramapuram can do, or Parur can do, or so many areas that you find in near Trichur and all that. Textile and handloom sector. So there are so many sectors. Once we decide to sit there, we got to find opportunities for employment. Find out opportunities for employment. And the larger point which Matthew said is right. You repair all the infrastructure, be it road or water or sanitation or transportation, power, etc. Those are things, those are a done thing. But concentrate on those areas which can create the job. Government cannot create the jobs. Impossible to do that particular thing and to create wealth for the particular one. Something, we are a consumer society. Kerala, total thing is somebody sends money from abroad or here, all you want to buy things over there, buy sarees, buy jewelry, buy that. Over there, all the malls are coming. What is happening in all the things you're buying? So you require a production-based or development-based economy which really creates wealth to be utilized over there. So there's got a major strategic shift for nature of employment, self-employment to be bought, or service sector employment to be bought. And development one has got to have a major attitudinal change. The change has to happen. And where the changes happened over there, that's where the best.
You are breaking, sir. Your voice is breaking. Your voice is breaking. Yeah. I will seek your pardon. Point well taken. Point well taken. That is, you have to map out and understand the skill and prepare. And then there are many. It is not doctors and engineers that we create. We can have from as many sectors. I would like to.
Yeah, resource mapping as mapping, and therefore work out towards the skill development.
Yeah, we'll do that. I'm sir.
What you require is not PhDs or MTech. What you require hands-on training with appropriate skill levels available, so people can be put on the job. Whether it's a certification is very, very important.
Right, sir. Sir, point well taken. I will seek your pardon. I'll come to the last stage because we have only about maybe about 8-9 minutes left. Some questions, but there is no big relevant questions which already is 2 or 3 which Suresh sir already had addressed.
let's
Now let me come to this. This question is to both Vijayaraghvan sir and Matthew sir. We'll start with this. See, there are 2 elements of that. One is the financial capability of the state to get these big time projects done. Okay. And in the last ministry, we saw the KIFBI project coming up, and the then finance minister going completely on a completely tangential way of fund management or fund bringing in fund. That is one side of it. The other question that I'm combining this, though they are not related together. The other side I want to bring in is ecological sensitivity. What are we doing? Because everything that we do now today, even this the Kale Rail project, it is fundamentally being said that it is going to divide, it is going to bring in ecological disaster into the state. So that is another thing. And Suresh sir already said about the fragility of the land that we have, the livability of the land, in which are all the land that is livable in Kerala, all that has been mentioned. So I just wanted to come on to these 2 points. One is, how do we get these funds? Do we have very innovative, imaginative fund management system? Point number 1. Point number 2, how do we actually take care of the ecology here? I'll start with you again, Sir VK Matthew. Sir, please be brief. Brevity, the essence of this discussion. We have got 8 minutes to finish. Yeah.
Okay, let's hear from Matthew.
Yeah. Matthew, sir.
Okay, so yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I see for the Silver Line project on the fundings, I look at the funding feasibility, not the commercial or the financial feasibility, because it's an infrastructure project.
Yeah.
And I think the economic returns is what we should be looking at. If assuming that cost of that project is 100,000 crores, yeah, not 63,000, 100,000 crores. And it is a loan to be taken over 50 years.
Yeah.
And at an interest rate which is low in dollar terms, but in rupee terms may be higher.
Hi.
Now, our spending, the state spending last year and every year has been with a deficit financing,
Yes.
is about 150,000 crores. Yeah, 150,000. And most of this money, unfortunately, is spent on salaries, pensions, and debt servicing. In other words, we are unable to spend on
development.
So on development and on future. So unfortunately, and if you were to be taking 2,500 crores from that and not make available for spending in the normal consumption pattern of the government, or I would say sometimes even wasteful spending, that is how I would say I will not look at the commercial feasibility of this project, in the sense this is an infrastructure that's being created, and then operationally they have to find means of seeing it. That's one aspect of it. And in some ways, I was happy with the way in which KIFBI was structured, because KIFBI made sure that the government did not see that money. So they cannot spend it. We have got so much of wasteful spending, so many chairmen and each one costing 2 crores, 3 crores per year. And there are a lot of wasteful spending in this. I'm not saying that the budget of the government should be curtailed. No, I'm not saying, but we should be able to create it more. Now, I'll just say, summarize it like this. Kerala is still a very difficult place to do business.
Indeed.
Clear marking is the last FDI was point. Kerala's share was sub 1%, 0.31%. We had 1,900 crores, whereas Maharashtra had 1,79,000 and Gujarat had 1,87,000 crores. So 1.87 lakh crores. So we are nowhere there. So we do have an issue. My take is, let government don't run loss-making PSPs. Don't reform and invest 9,000 crores, because they will be loss-making only.
Yeah.
If the government can make the infrastructure in the areas that I talked about, clean Kerala, safe Kerala, transportation included, our people are innovative and hardworking and hopeful and thriving, and they will make the future. We don't have to say, you do this, you know. You give them the environment, they will create future for themselves.
Yeah.
Our problem is, that's my point.
Your reply to one line reply to the ecological disasters that these big projects are supposedly bringing into the state. And one line, what do you feel about it?
It is something which we have to be looking at, the environmental impact, but I am 100% sure in the era that we live, we should be able to find a solution. After all, it is nothing but a rail line that's actually going.
Right. So I go to Vijayaraghvan, sir. Sir, your view on this.
I would say very clearly that, if government is going to find the money the way VK said, no problem. Okay. But very clearly, government is not going to find that money that way.
So why do you want to
Government
do
will
that,
continue-
sir? Why do you want to go into that? And they have not gone for the fund, you know. So why are, this is the problem that I see.
No.
Yeah,
VK said you will get the money by saving on your expenditure that you're doing. Government will not only reduce. Government had no business to actually do a salary revision at a time when it was huge. Okay. The problem is that always you find, every political party in Kerala has come to power that minority groups. When I say minority groups mean, the rich who are actually exploiting the poor. Today, we've gone to a stage that you've got minority groups, government officials and politicians who the rest of the state is serving. Okay. On how do I do less government? If that happens, less government, better you'll do. The second project, especially in today's time, you have to be clear about the economic, the social, and the environmental impact of a project. You cannot announce and start implementing a project without taking care of those three things. That should be done first. Then you go forward with the project and announce the project. Because otherwise, you don't say that you want to, all of us have worked on projects. You don't start talking about the project before you decide where it is going to be. Okay, or without looking at what's the impact that is going to be there, or whether you'll get the people there or not. That's one. So very clearly, without these points, you can't start any project, especially in a place like Kerala, where you have at least a large number of citizens who understand certain things. I would say
therefore, pessimistically taking the view of the last 30 years. So pessimistically, I will say that we will be where we are, isn't it? Because all this thing has to go around and come back.
No. That is what I'm suggesting. That is what I'm suggesting. KMA takes the lead to create, because I've done this with the Malayalam Manorama developmental seminars. In fact, there's a time when I got Pinarayi and Umman Chandi on the same thing when he was a party secretary, and both of them agreed on that they will go ahead with the political consensus on development. But it didn't move forward because he was in the opposition. Now the others are in the opposition.
So that's going to happen again. That's going to happen again. That's going to happen again.
The problem is it can't be through a seminar. You actually have to broker it out, which means you actually go and meet people, talk. You go to the other guy, talk, and then you start getting them together at a table without television.
Yes, sir, there is a hope because the UDF is less disruptive in opposition. Their disruption strength is less.
That is right. Madhav, your job is cut out now. Jayagaravan said, you remember what he had said, okay, your job is very well cut out. So you need to really broker it out. You understand? Okay, last stage. We have just 3 minutes left. I have a question.
I think on investment, can we do something?
I'm coming to
on investment.
Yeah.
On investment, can we do something which are investment friendly? For example, amount of money coming from the non-resident Keralites in other parts of the Middle East and other things are phenomenally. They would like to push back. Do something like what China has done to get all the Chinese money coming back for China's development. We got to do something for that, for the Kerala's development. Bring a product which will be giving a good returns, assured returns for them. And all the money is going for ostentatious wealth or residential building or palace building or nothing in terms of the infrastructure component except for the airport project. Find out ways by which, find out ways.
Yeah, so Vijay
but that did not offer a good product. It did not offer a good product. And even the nature of money Kiffby is raising it is not entirely going into those critical areas which you require on that. That is and a small amount, 3,000, 5,000 crores is nothing. We are talking in terms of 30,000 crores or 50,000 crores. If you talk in terms of water required for all, road required, sanitation required, waste management, if you want to add up all that particular thing, 3,000, 5,000 crores is nothing. You want to think it around 40, 50,000 crores worth of money outside the budgeted one, and which can pay for itself, the user pay. You can't get every water free. those particular money should produce a type of returns for the people who are investing in it, and the project should be also economically and financially viable. And I entirely agree, it should be environment issues are very important, social impact is very important, economic impact more important.
Right, sir. Thank
Economic,
you.
social,
Thank you.
and environment.
Yes.
So identify such,
Yes.
don't put all in the big mega project. Small is beautiful. Do large number of city-based waste management project. I think Matthew Wright is a clean word he used. Put in that. Convert all your cities and towns into clean cities over there. Tourism itself will add up on a very large way.
Thank you,
Clean,
sir. Thank you, sir.
hygienic.
Please allow me to come in. Please allow me to come in. We have only because
Sure,
of the positive time. Forgive me for butting in. Vijay Raghavan, sir, you were trying to answer, and that is going to be the last of the answer that you're giving, sir. Yes, please.
Yeah, what I was telling was, KIFBI did try to mobilize NRI funds, but I don't think it succeeded. They spent more on the advertising than they collected, okay? Because the problem is there is a lack of trust in anything which is government driven.
Correct.
Okay, among the Malayalis.
Yeah.
That is the biggest
They did a
problem.
good
For
product.
sure.
That has to be changed, which is where you should actually move to a place where you actually change your mindset and we allow business the freedom to do business. I don't think business should be given any incentives. Very clear. You just give them the freedom to do business and they will do the business. It will create jobs.
Matthew, sir.
I think, Nair sir, take that one word which Matthew has said. Kerala is a place difficult to do business. That is in the mind. That's stuck in the mind. A place which is difficult to do business. Change that particular perception of that particular, and that will mean a lot of things to many things. Kerala is a place difficult to do business. You change that particular one. That
Yes,
one
very well
decision
taken. Yeah,
to change
very-
that for series of actions will
Very
bring
well
in
taken.
automatically everything. As I told you, from pessimism towards optimism can come through a route which will go from 0 to 100. It will take some time. But you at least start with it. We want to grow.
Yeah,
We
right,
want
sir.
to
The
develop.
challenge that
You know,
the challenge
positive
that
message has to
the
go to all
challenge
the
that
political
Malayalis
parties,
the
to
challenge that
people
Malayalis
and the
doesn't
youth.
have. The challenge that Malayalis have is that there is no time, even for the meeting, even for this, we don't have the time. So I will take the last word from Mr. Matthews before I hand over to Madhav. Matthew, sir, last word.
Yeah, so I repeat the same thing. I think the government in the current context, if we really want to go for job creation, meaningful job creation, government should focus more on infrastructure creation in the areas that we talked about, in all of those areas, which is very important, and refrain from any activity where they can actually make a profit. Government cannot run businesses to make profits because all of them will be loss-making. If at all there is a public sector undertaking which is profitable, it's either because it's a monopoly or its products and services are fully bought by the government for providing to the citizens, which will be unfortunately substandard, not because our governments are bad, it's just that governments will not be able to compete in an open environment. So keep focusing on the infrastructure and social and physical infrastructure. People will make the future. Airlines are smart enough to be able to make their own future if the government doesn't stand in its way.
On that hope, only by sir, it was a very productive and very vociferous. And at the same time, we need to really get in so much of views within a given short span of time. So went off very well. So many points had been discussed. So many points could be discussed, and we could take it away for other 2.5 hours. Probably we may have some time. At the same time, Vijay Raghavan sir has given KMA some sort of a dictum telling that, okay, you can start brokering between the government and the opposition. And then there is one problem that I have is I have not been able to take any questions from the audience. At the same time, some of the questions were answered by Suresh sir. Thank you very much for that. And now I don't want to, because it's time. So many, I mean, we started with about 125 people. It has come down to 84 now. I will hand over to Madhav. Madhav, you may also do a little bit of summing up. I'm not venturing into that because if I start talking, you know what happens. So I'm stopping it here, handing it back to you, and you can conclude it. Thank you very much, Madhav. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Vijay Raghavan sir, Suresh sir, and Matthew sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, SR, and thank you so much, the distinguished speakers in the panel. It was a wonderful session. I am sure this could have gone on for another 1 or 2 hours because the kind of participation of the delegates who are present here, they all wanted to make statements. They all wanted to make questions, pose questions to each one of you. But as SR said, the time is a factor everywhere. And here also, there are a lot of takeaways, even though people would have just expected a K-Rail or a kind of a project being singled out and, spoken about in this particular session. We actually, went on the right track, of actually finding out how a positive perspective can be given to each one of us. And I would take the takeaway for KMA as well as for all others here was basically about the mindset change which has to be created. And that is a huge role which KMA and such kind of organizations, not only KMA, a lot of organizations like us, there's no doubt for that in Kerala for that matter. We need to actually trigger that particular initiative to create that change of mindset, or rather setting up a mindset change starting from ourselves. And obviously, a political consensus development, that definitely, whether it's called brokerage or whatever, brokering a deal or whatever it is, the personal interaction definitely makes a lot of sense rather than just having seminars and, having speeches going on just like that. That is very important to actually touch base with these leaders and do something that's a very right thing to talk about. And of course, that go to GoCo. I mean, that is what you actually finally said at the parting statement also. That is basically give government the role of infrastructure development and leave the business development and generation of employment to entrepreneurs. That is, I believe, the key to the whole thing here. Infrastructure, obviously, it is not going to generate income as it is, but then the income as a whole is going to be created because of the infrastructure being there. So that is a wonderful thought which all of us have to keep in mind. And definitely, when financing is happening, there are a lot of aspects to that. That is what was the crux of the discussion which was going on. And let us conceive smaller projects and city-centric projects. That is also a key for Kerala, a diverse place with limited infrastructure and limited geography and this expand of land being very constrained. I believe conceiving and doing smaller projects also makes a lot of sense. Anyway, there is a lot of things for us also to look into. KMA can definitely take this as an initiative to go forward with what GVR and Matthew sir and all said. We need to actually take this moving. This is only a start which we have made here, just to make people thinking about it rather than just harping on one project and criticizing that. Let us start talking about the bigger picture of creating that mindset, changing that mindset rather, and go forward for a positive outlook altogether. Now, for the formal vote of thanks, as time is running short, let me invite our Honorary Secretary, Chartered Accountant, Jomon George, to propose a formal vote of thanks. Over to you, Jomon.
Yeah. The Dynamic President, Madhav Chandran, the Program Committee Chair, and today's moderator, S.R. Nair, and three of the very eminent, expert, eloquent panel members this evening, invited guests and friends. Extremely happy to propose a formal vote of thanks for this about 1.5 hours, little more than 1.5 hours of very effective deliberation on Kerala's developmental conundrum, and turned out to be very effective in terms of participation and also the interaction. And SR engaged all the three panelists exceptionally well as usual. And let me start with Mr. Matthews, who was not just advocating things, he has being a global player, has made many of businesses happen, huge campuses, as I say, in Cochin. And with all the troubles, Kerala has recently constructed a new house and in Cochin. And that's really good that, you still love Kerala so much, being a global player. The clean, safe, digital Kerala with a reforming mindset moving forward is a need of there, absolutely no doubt about it. And you have always been partnering and hand-holding the government in many of its development projects. A very big thank you from all of us here for spending your very, very valuable time and being absolutely focused and replying to the questions in a very, very structured fashion. Thank you so much. And next was Vijayarayan sir, GVR, fondly and respectfully. And the real conundrum, I think he summed up in 3 words: vision, consensus, and implementation. And of course, towards that, it's the mindset blended with that is the real conundrum. But I think there are a lot of things which are possible, many things which are not there 10 years back, on which we had deliberated and said no are impossible, has happened in our state. So let us again have a positive mindset, and KMA would only be happy. I think licensing would be a better term than brokering in bringing all the agencies. And me as a finance professional, I feel that the funding requirements, many of the things can be addressed through CSR funds, which the government and governmental agencies are not really aware of it. And KMA today as a CSR approved agency, and therefore we have gone through the processes, and therefore a lot of things can be done with that more efficient financial discipline, whether it's a K-Rail. And it's also happening that what the president envisaged to be in the wake of K-Rail happened to be turned out to be a very generic discussion on the overall development of Kerala. I think the last chat by Mr. Suresh Vasudevan was on a one-day program on Kerala Forward, Fast Forward rather. So thank you so much, Vijayan sir, for wonderful inputs which have come from your unparalleled experience in bringing up the IT infrastructure and being in most of the projects which are worthy of mentioning in Kerala scape. And of course, Suresh was there in his experience. And I'm also happy that he has also come back and settled down in Trivandrum. And the mindscape, the term which has been commonly used. And I think the point you have raised is a sector-specific growth, whether it could be agripreneurs or coir or rubber or which Kerala is famous for. I think, and also you, I think, coined that with the need for huge vocational training, what many other states have done, we can really follow suit. So that is quite befitting in this kind of a discussion. And I know that you had the budget of time with with the enthusiasm, we managed to contain almost all the points and responded to all the queries, or rather the points which SR raised. So thank you, Suresh Vasudevan sir. We look forward to having more of your patronage, your time and support for our KMA activities. And SR, what to say, as usual, wonderful show, well coordinated, all the focus questions. And thank you so much. And to the president for conceiving this project so very well and bringing the best possibly the best combination of people from the three different sectors, three different backgrounds and formats, so to say, and made this evening really useful and effective for the members. So we are moving forward, absolutely, and we are not going to stop. Let more good projects happen with the vision, consensus, and a lot of effective implementation and effective funding. Of course, a lot of challenges ahead of us, but these kind of deliberations are not an end in itself. They're all good beginnings, indicators as to how we should move forward and embrace with more of passion. And KMA, and that is where the role of management associations are becoming more relevant and pronounced in being the conduit or effective connects between the governmental thinking and what the corporates, the visionary corporates can bring in. So altogether, a very great evening. Thank you to all at the Secretariat for a seamless, we didn't have any technical glitch this evening. And also to our sponsors, Sarah, Medivision, Heal, and Burma Homes for your continued support. Have a great evening, and let us look forward to and also work together to make Kerala a happening state with a lot of ease of doing business, a good place to live safely and a clean environment, and it's a digitally driven state and a reforming state where things would change in faster than it has been in the past. So visionary leadership and good political will, let that and wisdom prevail. God bless every one of you. Thank you, and this is a good night from me.
Thank you, Jomon. Ajit, are you having the mementos design displayed? He's affected with COVID, so yeah, he's there. He's actually at home and working on that. This will be sent physically. It's not an online memento. It's a physical memento, a signature memento of KMA, stating that you are here at least virtually to share your time and words with us. But let me just part with you all by this particular statement which GVR sir said, that is making credible statements and making themselves trustworthy. I mean, irrespective of whether you are leaders, whether you are from KMA or a delegate, when you say something, whether it's 20 lakhs employment or anything of that sort, we need to be trustworthy and we need to be credible. On that note, let us say goodbye and stay safe, and let us all look forward to a better tomorrow without this COVID and all other fears being away. Thank you so much and good night.